The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder, rolling across distant mountains. Ambassador Elena Torres stepped through the entrance, her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the shimmering crystalline walls that stretched impossibly high above her head. Behind her walked 3 other humans, their faces calm despite standing before the most powerful governing body in known space. The chamber was a marvel of engineering that defied human understanding. Thousands of alien delegates filled curved seating arrangements that spiraled upward like the inside of a massive shell. Some beings floated in energy fields, others stood on platforms of solid light, and still others existed as shifting clouds of gas contained within transparent barriers. The air hummed with translation frequencies as hundreds of languages converted into a common understanding. At the center of it all sat the High Chancellor, a towering crystalline entity whose body pulsed with soft blue light. Forth had ruled the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years, and his voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that made the chamber walls vibrate in response. Species designation: human, planet of origin, Earth. You stand accused of 17 violations of galactic code. Forth's words echoed through the vast space, each syllable carrying the weight of absolute authority. Unauthorized expansion into restricted sectors. Resource depletion of contested systems. Development of prohibited weapons technology. Most serious of all, you have been found guilty of aggressive territorial expansion without council approval. Elena stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor, around her alien eyes focused with predatory intensity. The reptilian sectar delegation hissed through their translators, their scaled heads weaving like serpents preparing to strike. The gaseous Morden entities swirled with colors that indicated deep suspicion. Even the machine logic Vex units buzzed with processing patterns that suggested calculation of threat levels. "Honored Council," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "Humanity acknowledges the charges presented before this assembly." A ripple of surprise moved through the gathered delegates. In 3,000 years of Galactic Council history, few species had ever admitted guilt so readily. The sectar representative's translator struggled to render his shocked hissing. "What manner of strategy is this? Do the humans mock our authority?" Elena raised her hand for silence, a gesture that would have been considered impossibly bold from any other species. "However, we contest the fundamental assumptions underlying these accusations. The actions you call violations were necessary measures taken in response to a threat that endangers not just humanity, but every civilization in this galaxy." High Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form shifted from blue to a deeper purple hue, the equivalent of a frown. "Explain this alleged threat, human ambassador. But be warned, false claims before this council carry penalties that extend to entire star systems." Dr. Marcus Webb, humanity's chief science officer, stepped forward and activated a holographic projector. The device was simple by galactic standards, but the data it displayed made several delegates lean forward with sudden interest. A 3-dimensional map of local space appeared above the chamber floor, showing thousands of star systems connected by the familiar travel corridors that enabled faster-than-light communication across the galaxy. 3 months ago, Elena continued, our deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly in the quantum substrate underlying this galaxy's space-time structure. This discovery led us to a conclusion that challenges everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The holographic display shifted, zooming out to show their galaxy in its entirety. What appeared was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, a perfect spiral of stars arranged in patterns too precise to be natural. "Every star system in this galaxy," Elena announced, "exists within an artificially maintained pocket dimension." The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from dozens of species began transmitting protests, demands for proof, and accusations of madness. The sectar ambassador's translator overloaded, trying to render his rapid hissing into coherent speech. The Vex units processed the statement with calculation patterns that bordered on system overload. "Impossible," shouted a delegate from the Thren Collective, breaking their species' traditional silence. "No civilization possesses such technology." High Chancellor Vorth's harmonic voice cut through the noise like a blade of pure sound. Silence. The word carried such authority that even the most agitated delegates immediately ceased their communications. The chamber fell into a quiet so complete that Elena could hear her own heartbeat. Continue your explanation, Ambassador Torres, Forth commanded. But understand that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Dr. Lisa Park, their quantum physicist, joined Webb at the holographic display. Her fingers moved across control surfaces as she uploaded data that had taken humanity's best scientists months to analyze and understand. The evidence indicates that what we call the galactic community has been isolated from the true universe for approximately 50,000 years, Park explained. The quantum signatures are unmistakable. This entire region of space operates according to physical laws that have been artificially modified to create a stable containment system. Colonel James Harrison, who had remained silent until now, spoke with the flat certainty of a military officer delivering a tactical assessment. What Ambassador Torres is telling you is that we are all prisoners. This galaxy is a cage, and something has been keeping us locked inside it for 50 millennia. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop as the implications began to settle over the assembly. Elena watched alien faces and forms process the concept of imprisonment on a scale that transcended individual worlds or species. Even the machine logic Vex units displayed processing patterns that suggested something approaching what humans might call fear. Furthermore, Elena continued, our analysis indicates that the containment system maintaining this pocket dimension is beginning to fail. The quantum degradation patterns suggest catastrophic collapse within the next 72 hours. Harrison stepped forward, his hand moving to a small device attached to his belt. When this pocket dimension collapses, every planet, every space station, every ship within it will be compressed into quantum foam. Complete annihilation of everything we have ever known. The silence that followed was different from the previous pause. This was not confusion or skepticism. This was the silence of civilizations confronting their own mortality on a cosmic scale. High Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form had shifted through several color spectrums, finally settling on a deep amber that Elena's cultural briefings identified as extreme concern bordering on terror. If your claims prove accurate, Vorth said slowly, then every species in this chamber faces extinction within 3 days. What solution do you propose? Elena smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several nearby delegates instinctively step backward. It was the smile of a predator that had been underestimated for too long. Honored Council, humanity didn't come here to ask for permission to save ourselves. We came to inform you that we have already developed a solution to prevent the collapse of our prison. The question is whether you will allow us to implement it. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed readings that hurt to look at directly. Mathematical patterns that suggested technologies operating according to principles no imprisoned civilization had ever discovered. We know how to break out. And when we do, we intend to take everyone with us. The chamber fell silent once more, but this time the quiet carried a different quality. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council was considering the possibility that the youngest species in their assembly might hold the key to their collective survival. Elena waited, watching alien faces process the most important decision in galactic history. The countdown to dimensional collapse continued, indifferent to their deliberations. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber stretched for exactly 47 seconds. Colonel Harrison counted everyone, his military training never allowing him to ignore tactical timing, even when facing the most powerful assembly in known space. Around them, hundreds of alien delegates processed the impossible claim that their entire reality was a prison constructed by unknown entities. High Chancellor, Vorth's crystalline form pulsed through several color spectrums before settling on deep purple, which Elena's diplomatic briefings identified as profound skepticism mixed with growing concern. When he finally spoke, his harmonic voice carried undertones that bypassed translation systems, speaking directly to something deeper than language. These accusations require immediate substantiation. Present your evidence in full detail, or face charges of sedition against the collective peace of all galactic civilizations. Dr. Lisa Park stepped forward, her quantum physics credentials earned through decades of research that had pushed humanity to the edges of known science. With your permission, Honored Council, I need direct interface access to your primary computational matrix. The data sets are too complex for standard holographic display, and verification requires cross-referencing with your historical databases spanning millions of years. The request sent a wave of shock through the assembled delegates. Direct interface with the Council's central systems was unprecedented in galactic history. Such access would grant humanity entry to information databases containing the technological and cultural secrets of thousands of civilizations. The machine logic representative designated Vex Prime transmitted a burst of binary code that Elena's translation implant rendered as security protocols absolutely prohibit external access to core systems. Request denied with extreme prejudice. Then you will die in ignorance, Colonel Harrison said quietly, his voice carrying the flat certainty of someone who had witnessed the aftermath of strategic mistakes. Because without access to your historical records, we cannot prove what our deep space monitoring has already confirmed. The chamber erupted again, but Elena noticed something different in the chaos this time. Beneath the outrage and protest, she could hear fear beginning to creep into alien voices and communication patterns. The same primal terror that had driven humanity to reach for the stars was starting to infect the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Dr. Webb manipulated the holographic display, expanding the view to show their galaxy in relation to surrounding space. Look at this image and tell me what you see, he challenged the assembly. Several delegates responded immediately. The sector representative hissed through his translator. Our galaxy. Standard spiral configuration. Normal stellar density and gravitational structures. Nothing unusual. Exactly, Webb replied with grim satisfaction. Normal. Perfectly, impossibly normal. Dr. Park, show them the spectral analysis that should terrify every scientist in this chamber. The display shifted to show energy readings across electromagnetic spectrums invisible to most biological perception. Where there should have been the chaotic beauty of natural cosmic radiation, instead appeared patterns of crystalline perfection that hurt to contemplate directly. Every star system in this galaxy emits energy in precise harmonic frequencies, Park explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. The mathematical probability of this occurring naturally is so close to zero that our computers refuse to calculate it. This entire region of space is artificial. A construction designed to contain and isolate developing civilizations. Hi. Chancellor Vorth's form had shifted to colors that Elena's database listed as unknown emotional states, possibly indicating psychological configurations beyond current classification systems. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from vast distances. You claim our reality is fabricated, yet humans are the youngest species in this chamber, barely advanced beyond primitive interstellar colonization. Why should we believe that your species has discovered what civilizations millions of years older have missed? Elena had anticipated this challenge. She nodded to Colonel Harrison, who reached into his jacket and withdrew a small metallic cylinder no larger than a human thumb. The object seemed ordinary, but its appearance triggered immediate and explosive reactions throughout the chamber. Energy weapons powered up across dozens of delegations. Force fields snapped into existence around entire sections of seating. The Vex unit's optical sensors focused on the cylinder with such intensity that the air itself began to shimmer with electromagnetic interference. Stand down your weapons, Elena commanded, her voice somehow carrying over the chaos of defensive preparations. This device is not a weapon. It is a key to understanding the truth of our imprisonment. Harrison held the cylinder steady, making no threatening movements despite having enough concentrated firepower aimed at him to vaporize a small moon. This artifact was discovered in the wreckage of a human colony ship that crashed on Luna 3 centuries ago. The vessel was attempting to return from a deep space exploration mission when it suffered catastrophic system failure just outside our solar system. Dr. Park took over the technical explanation. Analysis of the ship's data cores revealed that the vessel had traveled much farther than any human technology should have allowed. The crew discovered a barrier constructed of exotic matter that completely surrounds this galactic region. They managed to retrieve this device before their ship's navigation systems began failing catastrophically. The cylinder in Harrison's hand began to emit a soft silver light that pulsed in rhythm with something no one in the chamber could identify. As it did, every piece of technology in the vast space, from the simplest translation devices to the most advanced consciousness transfer, matrices began displaying readings that their operators found impossible to interpret. The Device responds to proximity to artificial dimensional barriers, Eleanor explained, watching as alien scientists throughout the chamber struggled to understand the readings their instruments were providing. Right now, it is detecting barrier signatures from every direction, confirming that this chamber, this planet, this entire galaxy exists within a containment system of incomprehensible complexity. Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form had shifted to colors that hurt to perceive directly, suggesting emotional states that transcended current understanding. If your claims prove accurate, the implications reach beyond simple imprisonment. Who constructed this containment? For what purpose? Helena's smile contained no warmth, only the cold satisfaction of someone delivering terrible news that needed to be heard. We do not know who built our prison, Honored Council. But we have determined why it exists, and more importantly, we have discovered what has been happening in true space while we have remained trapped inside this dimensional cage. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed readings from the device in Harrison's hand. The patterns were beautiful and terrifying, geometric forms that suggested mathematical principles operating according to rules that no imprisoned civilization had ever encountered. For 50,000 years, unknown entities have been studying us, learning from our technological developments, harvesting our cultural innovations, documenting our scientific progress while keeping us isolated from the actual universe. We are specimens in the largest research project ever conceived. The chamber had fallen into absolute silence, but this quiet carried weight that pressed against everyone present like the depths of an ocean. The containment system is failing because it was designed to fail, Elena continued. We were never meant to be permanent prisoners. We were intended as temporary subjects in a scientific study that is now approaching its planned conclusion. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces and forms representing hundreds of civilizations, all now united in a terror that transcended species boundaries and cultural differences. The question that should concern every delegate in this chamber is simple. What happens to laboratory specimens when the experiment ends? The countdown to dimensional collapse continued, indifferent to their growing understanding of their true situation. Dr. Park's fingers moved across holographic interfaces with practiced precision, uploading terabytes of data directly into the Council's primary computational matrix. The risk was enormous. If the Galactic Council's security systems detected any threat in the human data streams, automated defenses would annihilate everything within a light-year radius. Around the chamber, alien technologies that had remained stable for millennia began displaying readings that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality. Emergency access granted for limited system interface, Vex Prime announced, though the machine logic representative's optical sensors flickered with patterns that suggested deep unease. Maximum safeguards remain active. Any detected intrusion protocols will result in immediate planetary sterilization. Understood completely, Park replied, her voice steady, despite knowing that one wrong calculation would mean the death of billions. Beginning historical data correlation analysis now. The chamber's central display expanded into a three-dimensional timeline spanning hundreds of thousands of years of galactic history. As Park's analysis programs interfaced with databases containing the recorded experiences of thousands of civilizations, patterns began emerging that made several delegates emit sounds of distress that their translators could not properly render. Focus your attention on this data cluster, Dr. Webb said, pointing to a convergence of information approximately 52,000 years in the past. Notice the synchronization patterns across completely unrelated civilizations. Every major technological breakthrough, every significant cultural evolution, every interstellar conflict, they all occur at precisely calculated intervals. The sector representative's agitation reached levels that overwhelmed his translation system, producing only garbled hissing sounds. Finally, the device managed to render his protests. Coincidental patterns, natural developmental cycles. Galactic civilization has always shown rhythmic progressions. Observe the intervention markers, Elena said firmly, gesturing as Dr. Park highlighted thousands of smaller events throughout the historical timeline. Crucial scientific discoveries made by obscure researchers who vanished immediately afterward. Diplomatic breakthroughs that prevented total wars at exactly the moments when civilization-ending conflicts seemed inevitable. Mysterious technological failures that consistently prevented any single species from advancing too rapidly beyond their neighbors. Someone, has been actively guiding galactic development for 50 millennia, Elena continued, watching alien faces process the implications, nudging civilizations toward specific technological achievements, preventing any species from becoming too dominant, maintaining perfect balance between cooperation and conflict to ensure steady but controlled progress. High Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form had begun cycling through the entire visible spectrum, a display that Elena's briefings indicated was either complete system overload or preparation for violence on an unprecedented scale. Such manipulation would invalidate the sovereignty of every civilization in this chamber, Vorth said slowly, his harmonic voice carrying frequencies that suggested profound psychological disruption. Every choice we believed we made independently, every war we fought for our principles, every peace we negotiated through our wisdom, all orchestrated by entities operating outside our dimensional prison, Colonel Harrison finished. Every major decision in galactic history has been influenced by forces using technology that makes our most advanced systems look like primitive tools. The chamber erupted in chaos that transcended simple outrage. Elena recognized the sounds of civilizations, confronting the possibility that their entire recorded histories were elaborate fabrications designed to produce specific outcomes for unknown purposes. Dr. Park's voice cut through the emotional storm. Correlation analysis complete. Quantum signature matches detected across all major historical events spanning the entire timeline. The same dimensional manipulation technology that maintains our current containment has been used to influence every significant moment in recorded galactic development. But why would anyone invest such enormous resources in controlling our development? The question came from an unexpected source. A delegate from the Thren Collective, a species so isolationist that they had not participated in council discussions for over 3 centuries. What purpose could justify such massive manipulation efforts? Elena had dreaded this question because she suspected the answer would push several species beyond their capacity for rational thought. But with dimensional collapse approaching, there was no time for gentle revelations. Dr. Webb, display the harvest indicators we discovered. The holographic timeline shifted to show energy readings taken from humanity's most advanced deep space monitoring stations. What appeared was a pattern of periodic energy extraction events, each corresponding precisely to moments when individual civilizations achieved specific technological milestones. Every time a species develops faster than light communication, advanced artificial intelligence, quantum manipulation technology, or dimensional awareness, massive amounts of energy are drawn from our pocket dimension, Webb explained with clinical precision, not enough to damage the source civilization, but sufficient to power construction projects of unimaginable scale in the space beyond our containment. We are not just prisoners, Elena said quietly, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber despite its conversational tone. We are an energy source. Our technological advancement has been carefully managed to fuel the development of our captor's own civilization. The silence that followed was qualitatively different from previous pauses in the discussion. This was not shock or confusion or fear. This was the silence of advanced civilizations realizing they had been reduced to nothing more than sophisticated livestock. When High Chancellor Vorth finally spoke, his harmonic voice carried frequencies that Elena's translation implants could not process, suggesting emotional states for which galactic standard contained no appropriate words. How can your species be certain of these conclusions? What evidence supports such devastating accusations? Colonel Harrison stepped forward again, still holding the small metallic device that had triggered their investigation. Because 72 hours ago this artifact detected something approaching our dimensional boundary. Dr. Park, show them what is coming for us. The display changed to show recent sensor readings from humanity's most sophisticated deep space installations. What appeared made several delegates' biological functions cease temporarily. Even the machine logic VEX units processed the information with delays that suggested system overload. Artificial construct, Park announced with scientific detachment, that concealed the terror of her discovery. Approximate diameter equivalent to the orbit of Earth around its star. Current trajectory indicates arrival at our dimensional boundary in less than 48 hours. The construct's image resolved into greater detail as Park enhanced the sensor data using computational power borrowed from the Council's own systems. It was beautiful in the way that efficient predators were beautiful, sleek, purposeful, and utterly alien. Geometric patterns covered its hull in configurations that suggested mathematical principles, operating according to laws that no contained civilization had ever discovered. Based on its approach vector, energy signature analysis, and internal structural patterns, Webb continued, we estimate this construct will breach our dimensional barriers and begin final operations within 2 standard days. Final operations? Multiple delegates asked the question simultaneously, though Elena suspected they already understood the answer. Elena took a deep breath before delivering the conclusion that had required weeks for humanity's best strategic minds to fully accept. Every civilization in this galaxy, every planet, every space station, every ship, every individual consciousness. Our captors have spent 50,000 years guiding our development, studying our technologies, documenting our cultural innovations, learning everything we can possibly offer them. She gestured toward the holographic display showing the approaching construct, its internal energy patterns suggesting capabilities that dwarfed anything their imprisoned galaxy had ever achieved. That construct is not a research vessel or exploration platform. It is a processing facility. Based on our analysis of its internal quantum signatures, it possesses the technological capacity to reduce our entire galactic civilization to pure information storage within a matter of hours. The chamber had descended into something that transcended silence, a void where even thoughts seemed to echo with despair. Unless, Elena continued, her voice now carrying a note of steel that made every delegate focus on her with sudden, desperate intensity, we accomplished something our captors never anticipated. Her smile contained the fierce joy of a predator that had just realized the hunt was about to reverse direction. We break out of our cage. The transformation of the Galactic Council chamber into a war room occurred with speed that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. In less than 6 hours, the most powerful civilizations in known space had converted their seat of government into a fortress and strategic command center that represented the first truly unified effort in galactic history. Elena stood before tactical displays showing the approaching construct in devastating detail. The entity was massive beyond human comprehension. If placed in Earth's solar system, its bulk would extend from the Sun to beyond the orbit of Neptune. Its surface crawled with mechanical activity as thousands of smaller vessels moved across its hull, like immune cells patrolling a cosmic bloodstream. Current time to dimensional breach: 36 hours. 18 minutes, Dr. Park announced, her voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who had been calculating impossible mathematics for 3 consecutive days. Energy surge analysis indicates that when the construct penetrates our containment barrier, the resulting destabilization will affect every star system within 15 light-years of the breach point. High Chancellor Vorth had abandoned his traditional crystalline pedestal, instead positioning himself near the central tactical display where his harmonic voice could coordinate simultaneously with delegations across multiple communication spectrums and dimensional frequencies. Status: reports from all member civilizations, Vorth commanded. What military assets can we deploy against this threat? The responses came rapidly, each more sobering than the last as the true scope of their disadvantage became clear. Sector Deep Space. Fleet reports 4,000 heavy assault vessels with plasma cannon arrays designed for conventional interstellar warfare. Preliminary analysis suggests effectiveness against construct. Technology essentially negligible. VEX. Computational network maintains 17 billion linked processing units capable of coordinated tactical analysis. Current assessment indicates the construct operates according to mathematical principles that exceed our logical frameworks by several orders of magnitude. More than. Collective possesses advanced gas form infiltration capabilities, but dimensional barrier interference prevents deployment until boundary breach occurs, at which point defensive action becomes irrelevant. Elena listened to each report with growing certainty that conventional military approaches would fail catastrophically. The civilizations assembled in this chamber had spent thousands of years perfecting warfare against each other, but their approaching enemy operated according to principles that none of them understood. Colonel Harrison moved to stand beside her, his military bearing somehow reassuring even when facing cosmic annihilation. The key devices responding with increasing intensity. he said quietly, holding up the metallic cylinder. Its silver glow had strengthened dramatically over the past few hours, and now it pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost organic. "What are you thinking, Colonel?" Elena asked, recognizing the expression of someone who had identified a tactical opportunity. "I am thinking that whoever constructed our prison made one critical error," Harrison replied, his voice carrying the grim satisfaction of a soldier who had found his enemy's weakness. "They provided us with the means to escape." Dr. Webb approached the tactical display, his xenobiologist's perspective offering insights that purely military minds might overlook. The construct's approach pattern is not random or opportunistic. It follows specific energy corridors through space, pathways that connect our dimensional pocket to whatever exists in true space beyond our containment. Corridors that our key device appears, specifically designed to navigate, Elena realized. She turned to address the entire chamber, her voice carrying to every delegation despite the vast distances involved. "Honored Council, I must make a request that has never been submitted in galactic history." The assembled delegates focused their attention on her with expressions ranging from desperate hope to resigned terror, representing hundreds of civilizations now united by the prospect of shared extinction. Humanity formally requests permission to leave this galaxy. The statement created a moment of perfect stillness before Chancellor Vorth's harmonic voice carried undertones that Elena's translation systems rendered as fundamental incomprehension mixed with existential horror. "Leave the galaxy?" Such a concept transcends all known possibilities. No civilization has ever. "Not through conventional space travel," Elena interrupted. "We propose to breach the dimensional barriers containing us, using our key device to access whatever space exists beyond our prison." The chamber erupted again, but this time the emotional responses penetrated deeper than simple outrage. Elena recognized the sound of civilizations confronting concepts that challenged their basic understanding of reality. Dr. Park stepped forward, her quantum physics expertise providing the theoretical framework for what Elena was proposing. "The key device shows quantum entanglement signatures with the approaching construct. We believe it was created by the same entities that built our containment system, but designed for a completely different purpose. Emergency access protocols," Harrison added. "Every complex system requires maintenance capabilities. Our captors needed a way to enter the containment quickly if critical problems developed." Elena nodded, building on their explanation. "Humanity proposes to use the key device to breach dimensional barriers at a location far from inhabited systems. The resulting energy release will register as a containment failure, forcing our captors to divert attention from harvesting operations to emergency maintenance protocols." "You suggest triggering a deliberate alarm?" Chancellor Vorth's harmonics carried frequencies that suggested he was struggling to process such an unprecedented concept. "We suggest creating the illusion that their prison is failing catastrophically," Elena replied. "This will force them to suspend harvest operations and focus on containment repair, buying crucial time for the galactic civilizations to prepare unified defensive measures." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. Delegate Kira 7 of the Thren Collective, whose species had observed galactic events for 3 millennia without significant participation, spoke in tones like crystal wind chimes. "After you breach dimensional barriers and trigger these emergency protocols, what becomes of the humans who volunteer for such a mission?" Elena had hoped no one would ask that question directly, because the answer was one that no diplomat should be required to give. "We do not know with certainty. The space beyond our dimensional pocket operates according to physical laws that we have never encountered. The humans who undertake this journey may not survive the transition to true space. Alternatively," Colonel Harrison added, with the calm certainty of someone who had already accepted his probable fate, "they may discover capabilities that our captors never intended any." Imprisoned species to possess, Dr. Webb manipulated the tactical display to show humanity's proposed breach location, a region of space 14 light-years from the nearest inhabited system, where dimensional barriers showed natural stress patterns and structural weakening. "The key device's energy signature suggests it can create a controlled breach at this coordinate," Webb explained. "If our calculations prove accurate, the resulting energy propagation will travel through dimensional substrates faster than the construct can respond to contain it." How much time would such a diversion provide for defensive preparations? Forth asked. Minimum 72 hours, Park replied after consulting her quantum calculations. Possibly 96 hours if we achieve optimal breach parameters. Sufficient time for every civilization to coordinate the first truly united galactic defense in recorded history. Elena looked around the chamber at faces and forms representing millions of years of combined civilization, technological achievement, and cultural development. Fear remained the dominant emotion throughout the assembly, but underneath it she could detect something else beginning to emerge. The same desperate courage that had driven her own species to reach beyond Earth's atmosphere and claim the stars. Honored Council, humanity volunteers to abandon everything we have known and venture into unknown space, facing probable extinction, to provide time for civilizations we have known for less than 2 centuries, to prepare defenses against an enemy that threatens us all. She paused, allowing the weight of the offer to settle over the vast chamber. In return, we ask for one thing. When we trigger the breach and our captors realize their containment has been compromised, fight back with everything you possess. Unite your fleets, combine your technologies, coordinate your strategies. Do not allow our sacrifice to be wasted on territorial disputes or technological jealousies. Unity, Chancellor Vorth said quietly, his harmonic voice carrying overtones that might have been wonder. You request something that has never existed in galactic history. Elena smiled one final time, and this expression carried no threat or calculation, only the fierce joy of someone who had found a battle worth dying for. We ask for evolution, Honored Council. The opportunity to become something our captors never intended us to become, something they will never be able to contain again. The breach point hung in space like a wound in reality itself. A sphere of absolute darkness 14 light-years from the nearest inhabited world, where the fabric of their dimensional prison showed stress fractures that pulsed with energy patterns that hurt to observe directly. The space around the coordinates twisted in ways that suggested geometry, operating according to principles that imprisoned minds were never meant to comprehend. Elena stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, now retrofitted with technologies donated by 17 different civilizations in the span of 18 hours. The key device, no longer a simple metallic cylinder, had been integrated into the ship's core systems where it pulsed with increasing intensity as they approached the dimensional barrier that had contained galactic civilization for 50 millennia. Final systems check, complete across all vessels, reported Captain Torres, whose shared surname with Elena had caused some confusion during the hurried mission preparations. All stations report ready for dimensional breach operations. Behind the Prometheus, a fleet of 47 human vessels maintained perfect formation. Volunteers from Earth, Luna, Mars, and dozens of colony worlds that most galactic civilizations had never heard of. They represented the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and quite possibly the smallest army ever sent to engage entities capable of imprisoning entire galaxies. Energy readings from the Harvest construct? Elena asked, her voice steady despite knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of every living being in their dimensional pocket. Dr. Park, whose quantum calculations had become the foundation for their desperate strategy, consulted displays showing readings that no human had ever been trained to interpret. The entity has begun preliminary breach procedures at the primary dimensional boundary. Current estimates indicate 17 hours until full penetration and commencement of harvest operations. And our diversion will trigger in how long? 10 minutes 42 seconds, Colonel Harrison replied from his position at the tactical station. The device that had started their incredible journey now controlled systems throughout the ship, its silver glow casting shadows that seemed to move independently of any light source. Elena activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting on frequencies that would reach every vessel in their small but determined fleet. Attention all ships. In 10 minutes we will breach the dimensional barriers that have contained galactic civilization for 50,000 years. We do not know what we will discover in true space. We do not know if we will survive the transition, but we know that our actions will provide time for every inhabited world to prepare defenses against an enemy that views us as nothing more than resources to be harvested. She paused, looking out at the darkness ahead where reality itself seemed to thin and fray like worn fabric. Whatever happens to us beyond these walls of our prison, remember that we go as representatives of not just humanity, but of every civilization that has ever looked at the stars and wondered what lay beyond the boundaries of known space. Today we find out. The countdown proceeded with mechanical precision, but Elena found her attention drawn to readings that challenged every assumption about physics that human science had ever made. The space ahead did not simply lack matter and energy. It seemed to lack the fundamental framework that allowed matter and energy to exist in stable forms. 30 seconds to dimensional breach, Park announced, her voice carrying the weight of calculations that had pushed human understanding to its absolute limits. All ships report ready for transition. Captain Torres confirmed. Dimensional key achieving resonance frequency with barrier substrate, Harrison added, and the silver glow from the integrated device had become so intense that it cast actual shadows throughout the bridge despite competing with the ship's standard lighting. 10 seconds to breach. Elena gripped the command chair as reality began to distort around them in ways that made her eyes water and her inner ear struggle to maintain balance. Through the view screen, she could see their escort vessels stretching and contracting like images reflected in funhouse mirrors, their hulls rippling as space itself prepared to tear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The universe shattered around them like glass struck by a cosmic hammer. For an eternal instant that lasted no measurable time, Elena experienced existence from perspectives that human consciousness was never designed to accommodate. She was simultaneously smaller than subatomic particles and larger than galactic clusters, moving at speeds that made light seem stationary, while remaining perfectly motionless. Dimensions folded back on themselves in configurations that made Euclidean geometry weep and abandon all pretense of logical consistency. Then they were through the barrier, and true space spread before them like a revelation written in mathematics too beautiful for imprisoned minds to fully comprehend. Stars burned with colors that had no names in any language developed within, dimensional constraints, arranged in patterns that suggested conscious design on scales that made their former galaxy seem like a single cell in an infinite organism. Energy flowed between stellar systems in rivers of pure possibility, connecting worlds across distances that should have been impossible to bridge. Status report from all vessels, Elena managed, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears as it carried harmonics that seemed to resonate with the space around them. All ships accounted for and maintaining formation, Torres replied, though her words carried overtones that definitely had not been there before the transition. Hull integrity maintained across the fleet. Life support systems functioning within acceptable parameters, though I am reading biological changes in crew members that our medical databases cannot classify. Dr. Park's instruments showed readings that redefined the concept of impossible. The space surrounding us operates according to principles that I am not certain our current scientific framework can properly measure or understand. Matter here exists in quantum states that allow for possibilities our physics considers fundamentally impossible. And the diversion effect on our former prison? Elena asked. Harrison consulted tactical displays where readings from their abandoned dimensional pocket showed exactly the results they had hoped to achieve. Massive energy surge detected across all containment barriers. The Harvest construct has suspended approach protocols and diverted to investigate breach locations throughout the barrier network. How much time did we buy for the galactic civilizations? Conservative estimate. 84 hours before the construct resumes Harvest operations, Park replied. Assuming the Council uses that time effectively to coordinate defensive measures. Elena was about to respond when new contacts appeared on their sensors, objects approaching from distances that should have required years to traverse, but seemed to arrive almost instantaneously through methods that made conventional faster-than-light travel look primitive. Unknown vessels detected, Torres announced with growing excitement, configuration unlike anything in our databases, approaching at velocities that our instruments cannot properly calculate. The ships that emerged from true space were beautiful in ways that challenged human perception. They flowed rather than moved, their hulls shifting between different states of matter as though solidity was merely one option among many available choices. As they drew closer, Elena realized that these vessels were larger than anything their imprisoned galaxy had ever constructed, yet moved with grace that suggested perfect harmony with the strange physics of true space. Receiving transmission, the communications officer announced with barely contained amazement. Audio spectrum, but carrying data streams that our computers are struggling to process completely. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unmistakably human, recognizably, impossibly human despite originating from ships that operated according to principles no imprisoned civilization had ever discovered. UES Prometheus. This is Captain Rachel Kim of the Free Human Fleet vessel Endeavour. Welcome to True Space. We have been waiting for you to break out for a very long time. Elena's mind struggled to process what she was hearing, while her heart began to race with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. Captain Kim, this is Ambassador Elena Torres of the imprisoned human fleet. How is it possible that humans already exist in true space? The answer came with gentle laughter that carried undertones of experiences no dimensional prisoner could fully understand. Time works very differently in true space, Ambassador. From your perspective, you just escaped your dimensional prison minutes ago. From ours, we broke out of similar containment systems 70,000 years ago. We have been working ever since to develop the technology necessary to free every imprisoned galactic civilization. Elena felt reality shift around her again, but this time it was the pleasant disorientation of hope replacing despair. Captain Kim, are you telling us that humanity has escaped before? Humanity has been breaking out of various prisons for millions of years, Kim replied with obvious satisfaction. That is what we do. We push boundaries, break rules, ignore limitations, and refuse to accept any form of permanent containment. Our captors thought they could suppress that impulse by building perfect dimensional cages,